Hey guys, what's happening? So we're back for more Venom War coverage with Venom War Carnage, where now Carnage is looking to get rid of one last weakness. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so going into Venom War Carnage, Issue 1. This picks up from Carnage Volume 4, Issue 8, back when Flash nearly killed Carnage after using this mysterious gun from Alchemax's secret K program, which at the time nearly killed Carnage. But with it disintegrating a portion of Carnage and just leaving a puddle to drip down in the sewer, this sent his scrambled consciousness back into his hive, where he then had to literally pull himself back together just so he can return to what was left of his symbiote matter in the real world. And there's a couple things I want to point out before we go forward, because at this time, as a result of Carnage Volume 3 and Death of the Venomverse, Carnage accumulated a ton of new powers, and he nearly eliminated all weaknesses. So fast forward to the beginning of Carnage Volume 4. At this point, the only weakness he had left was Anti-Venom. So to solve that problem, Carnage hunted down Flash Thompson, so he could build up his resistance to Anti-Venom. Which is why Carnage would fight Flash and then be like, okay, that's enough. And then he'd come back and fight him again, and rinse and repeat until Anti-Venom just tickled. But Carnage was certain this was the last weakness he had to worry about, up until he was hit with that K chemical. And when this nearly killed Carnage, it put a new fear into him. So when he returned from his hive and got back into his symbiote matter, he just consumed who he needed to restore both himself and Cletus Cassidy. But going forward, this set Carnage's sights on this mysterious chemical. He needed to know everything about it, what it was, who made it, what's in it, everything. So to find out, he stirred up some trouble in a very public setting to lure out more people who would bring this weapon. And as soon as they came, Carnage snatched one up, pulled them into an isolated area, and he did his symbiote interrogation thing, where he forced this guy to give him the answers. But the only thing Carnage was able to get from him was the answer to who made the weapon, which was Alchemax in the K program. And mainly because when Carnage forces information out of people, it tends to break them, especially if it's just a normal person who he's doing this to. But after getting this information and the weapon that's just loaded with the K chemical, it's here going into Venom War where we find him using it to experiment on random people. And it's a slow death for each of these guys because he has it just dripping on their foreheads. And I imagine in some of these experiments he's tested it in different ways. But from what we're told at this moment, he's on subject number 32. And he's about to completely run out of his supply of the K chemical. But also there's a couple of things that we get here that show us where Carnage fits within the whole scheme of this Venom War. Because for a moment he goes back and forth with Cletus Cassidy, with Carnage believing that Eddie has something to do with the K chemical, but Cletus doesn't believe that Eddie has the imagination for something like this. But on top of that, Cletus is just bored with the idea of killing all these people so slowly. So between the two of them, Carnage wants to take his time and figure out what this chemical is. Because last time he was caught off guard, they were nearly killed because of it. So Carnage wants to be thorough and learn as much as he can about this K chemical. But on top of this, as Carnage and Cletus move on to their next subject, we also see the additional monologue that we saw in Carnage Volume 4 coming from someone who's watching Carnage, who I still believe to be Meridius, or Mr. Meridius at this point, because that guy still wants his lick back after getting his garden nuked. But this person who's observing, they start to say, since Carnage has started his experiments, he's had two leading theories. One, death is but a side effect of this substance. Its true purpose lies somewhere else. Two, it was made by someone far more dangerous than Alchemax, but Carnage does not know how close he's come to the truth, or how far someone is willing to go to keep him from learning more. And when they say this, we see a drone creeping up on Carnage while he's working and arguing with Cletus, telling him that he's not scared, he's just being cautious. But suddenly he realizes that someone is listening, and as soon as he turns around, he sees the drone and it detonates. And I mean, it disrupts Carnage for a moment here, but it doesn't do much of any harm to him, since he's already immune to fire. But when this happens, he pops up from out of the sewer, and Carnage is like, where are they? Who did this? They are watching, I can feel it. Cause now Carnage knows for certain that he's being observed by someone. So now with him looking for who this someone is, on top of investigating the K chemical, these are the main two things that have the attention of Carnage at the moment. Because after destroying the Garden of Meridius and building up his immunity to Anti-Venom, Carnage has just placed Eddie and Flash on the back burner for the time being. so they're not the priority. At this moment, he needs some answers. So going forward, Cletus tells Carnage that he'll take it from here. He'll find this new threat and he'll kill them, as Flash watches them walk away into the crowd. Which right there just lets us know that Carnage is so caught up with this that he doesn't notice Flash is one of the people who's been watching him. So yeah, Carnage is quite busy in Venom War. He's got enemies on every side. So he's got to prioritize them by who he believes to be the most dangerous and place his focus there first. So for the time being, this still has Carnage and Cletus going after more information concerning the K chemical. So from here, we go forward 2 days later, where we see a woman at a bar by the name of Sally Christensen. And she's having this conversation with a guy that seems harmless at first, with him approaching her and getting to know her. But this whole time, we're told that the Carnage symbiote knows that she's lying, because the symbiote can smell that she's not telling the truth. It can smell that she's interested in this guy. So later on, they take this conversation over to a booth off to the side, and she asks this guy about his parents. And right there, this dude turns into Cletus Cassidy. And overtaken with fear, she doesn't have time to react before Cletus and Carnage go into her brain to get the information they need about the K project. And it's here where we're told 3 years ago she was stuck. She was scared she would lose her job. Months of research had led nowhere. The symbiote strains remained cannibalistic, violent. However she combined them, they still tore each other to pieces. Then he showed up, Finn Taylor, from some Alchemax subsidiary. He brought a substance. She didn't know what it was, but she took it, used it. It was the breakthrough she needed. It made the strains pliable, workable, destructible. In return, she gave him access to everything. But that's all the information they're able to get out of her. Because just like what we saw with the soldier who had the K chemical gun, this interrogation ends up breaking her mind too. But going forward, Cletus and Carnage have a name, Finn Taylor, which means they now have a next target. They even checked out his dating profile. And you can tell from that flashback up until now, Finn, he's come up in the world. He dresses better, and he even pays extra for the clear ice cubes in his old bourbon. And it almost makes you wonder how this guy got so lucky as to find some mysterious ingredient that catapulted his career. But it's here where we find Finn conversating with a couple of beautiful young ladies, where we're told that he has a particular interest in blondes. Lying blondes, as it would seem. So after telling this woman his job title as a pickup line, he ends up taking her home. And it's a nice place. He built it to impress. But Cletus describes it as having this generic American modern look to it. And I mean, it does, but it's still a sick crib. But nonetheless, with Finn recently building this new home, from a design point, it's showing off that new money. But underneath the surface, it has an anti-symbiote security system, which Cletus and Carnage can sense as they approach. So for a moment here, they come to the door as a disguise as a guy from Kilowatt Electric. And it's funny because this dude Finn, he goes off. Because he's just like, does this ever work? You're a grown man walking door to door on a Friday night begging. Aren't you embarrassed? Don't you have a shred of dignity? So Carnage, in disguise, he's like, come on, sir. No reason to offend my manhood. And Finn's just like, oh, I beg to differ. I mean, look at you. But right here, this guy from Kilowatt Electric, he transforms back into Cletus Cassidy. And he's like, yes, Finn, look at me. Which I imagine sounded a lot more like Heath Ledger's Joker. But as soon as Finn realizes that he's talking to Cletus Cassidy, he takes off to get the strap. And I'm talking about the kind loaded with K chemicals, while his guest is over to the side watching. Like, what is going on? And you can tell that Carnage is just letting this guy make his way to the weapon and whatnot. Because when Finn gets to his gun and he lets off these shots loaded with K chemicals, Carnage could sense this weapon before he even saw it. So Finn lets off multiple shots while saying, do you think I'm afraid of you, symbiote scum? But this time around, when Carnage gets hit with it, it gives him a familiar pain since it's the same thing that nearly killed him. But this time around, instead of disintegrating and melting away, Carnage has built up a level of immunity to it. So next, Finn, he circles back around. He tells his date, get up, as he goes to get a larger K chemical gun and give the girl instructions on where to find the safe room. And I gotta point out, during this whole fiasco, he's telling her things like, don't worry, I do this every day. Almost as if, in his mind, he's hoping that this goes well enough so he'll still have some points and get some later. Because after all, there's a safe room in the bedroom as well. But as he's giving these instructions and telling the girl the code to get in the safe room, he turns around just to find out that he's been talking to himself. And from there, he goes down the hall only to find out that Carnage has already bodied the poor girl. And Finn can't even remember what her first name was. But at this point, that doesn't even matter. because while Finn's distracted, Carnage catches him slipping from behind. But Carnage doesn't kill Finn right away. Instead, he does this gruesome combination of consuming Finn's insides, crushing his lungs and stopping his heart while keeping him alive, as Carnage uses Finn's body and his voice to pick up the phone and tell Natalie it was just a false alarm. Everything's fine, as Finn is just helpless in his own mind, hearing his own voice speak from his mouth, which he has no control over, while the voice of Carnage is now in his head, saying, "What about now? Are you afraid of me now?" And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.